There's almost nothing more infuriating than working on a program, a curriculum, an event for your dance studio, and then putting it out there, and a week later, seeing the studio down the block rip it off. It's frustrating. And today we're going to get into what to do about that, and honestly, why, if you're the copier, that's a bad move. Welcome back to Dance Studio Advertising. My name is Bryce Conlan. Thanks for joining me on this Monday morning. I hope you've got yourself a cup of tea or coffee or Red Bull or whatever it is that you use to get yourself going in the morning, and let's get into it. So the idea of copying comes up all the time. Our team gets to talk to probably about 400, 500 dance studio owners every year. And usually even on part of our strategy call, when we're getting to know studios for the first time and evaluating, is this a good fit? Do we want to work together? It comes up. I'm like, why do you want to do marketing? Why are you here today? And they're like, because everything I do, this studio over here copies me and rips me off. And I'm frustrated and I need to get ahead. And it happens all the time, like all the time. And to be completely honest with you and fully transparent, it happens to us too. At Dance Motion Marketing, we try to be as innovative as we possibly can with our offerings and how we help studios, and even in our messaging and branding and the types of content that we put out in the world. And constantly, when we pioneer a new follow-up method, we see somebody rips it off and copies it. When we started pioneering a new ad format that would allow to make it easier for parents to opt in and make it more relational, immediately our competitors started ripping that off. Even the types of content, we've started doing mini documentaries where we talk to our clients all across the country and turn that into video content. And some of the big studio management softwares have ripped it off to the T. It's to the point. It's so bad, just to illustrate this, it is so bad that if I see their content on Facebook and like in the feed, I'm like, wait, when did we shoot that? Because that's how closely, from the style of the captions to the style of the content, it's all a ripoff of things that we have pioneered. Now, I don't say that to brag. I say that to say, I understand. I get it. I know what it's like when you're like, wow, we've spent all this time and effort and money and energy building this super cool thing. And then you turn around and someone else goes, yeah, that's a great idea. And they just take it for themselves. And it's super frustrating. And so let's get down to the root of why this is so irksome, right? And I think for most of us, it's not really about the fact that they're copying the idea. It's what comes underneath that. It's sort of this deep-seated fear of, what if they take my ideas and do it better than me? Take my ideas and then grow faster. Take my ideas and then peel my customers, my clients, my students out of my studio and into theirs. And so that becomes a frustration, a point of concern. It's like, well, that's really what's going on. It's if they take my idea, then they're just as good as me. And I'm just going to ask you to flip that idea in your brain, because it's not. I mean, really, if they're copying you, it is just a sign that you're the leader in your market. If you're not copying them, then it means that they don't have anything worth copying. But if they're copying you, it is sign from other professionals that you're doing the right thing. Now, this sounds a lot like a platitude where it's like, oh, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And maybe, I don't know. But what I do know is, take that leadership position that you have and push it farther. So let's take a step back and explore why people copy in the first place. And truthfully, why it's a really weak move. So I found that the number one reason that people copy is because they don't know how to create their own winning strategy. So they're just grasping at straws. Usually copycat comes from a place of desperation. The thing, like, I'm looking at your growth going, oh my gosh, that studio is growing so much better than I am, so much faster than I am. I should do exactly what they do to allow myself to grow. Now, again, if you're the copied, that's still annoying. If you're the copier, it's not a strong position to be in, because you can't rely on somebody else's strategy to help you win. You're fundamentally starting in a different place, and that's not going to ever be a true one-for-one. And so you've got to learn, if you want to build your business long-term, to stop copying the biggest, baddest studio in town. And you need to learn how to build your own winning strategy so that you can ultimately be successful. Now, if you are the copied, just one quick word of, I guess, encouragement is that if they're following you, then they're always behind you. And keep that in mind too. So just be aware of that. Be cautious of how and when you put things out there, knowing that they're going to get copied off, and that's totally fine. But just know that they're always going to be a step behind you. And so as you have more innovative ideas, more big breakthroughs, you're always going to be the market leader. And if everybody else starts to, and they will, and other people in your community will start to figure out, like, oh, that person's just copying the other person, I should just go to the source of the inspiration, right? So it's actually not totally terribly bad. It is just annoying. The other thing to keep in mind, if you are the copier, that again, without your own vision for your business, without an understanding of what your dance families are showing up for, without a clear understanding of what it takes to grow your studio beyond where you are today, if you don't learn those lessons because you just go and steal somebody else's idea, which go right ahead, ultimately, it just becomes the nail in your own coffin. You will not know how to grow the business or to scale it or to sustain it over the long term. You will not understand, because this is all, it all builds. Like, business is just a lesson, right? You start the thing and you're like, okay, I'm just going to start a studio, and you start it, and then you realize, oh, I have to learn, I have to hire people, and then you have to learn to delegate, then you have to learn to lead, and then you have to, there's all these lessons that you learn along the way. If you're not learning the lessons in order because you're just taking the cheat codes from somebody else, your business will at some point fall apart. And I'm not saying that as a threat. It's just a reality. And I know this because I have run that kind of business before. Eventually, your ability to manage the business will not keep up with the innovation and the growth of it, and the business collapses, usually harming your reputation for both the short and the long term, which is not good. I have literally heard of studio owners who had to pick up their studio and move it to a different town, a different city, because their reputation was so badly burned and damaged by how they handled growth that they weren't ready for. So keep all of that in mind. So let's go deeper into this. Why copying the studio down the block won't help you get ahead. Truthfully, customers can tell when you're being inauthentic. If you do something that is outside of your ethos, your brand, your vibe, your culture, you just take something else that's not yours, people can just sort of tell. And it's one of those really, I think, unique things about humanity, is that we just sort of feel it. Like, you may say all the right things and do all the right things, but we just sort of feel, and it's like, I don't know, this feels funny. And we don't like that. That's not a good look. So the inauthenticity is really important. This is especially true if the thing that you copied ever gets any, the program, the curriculum, whatever, ever gets any traction, and people say, oh, how'd you come up with that? And you BS your way through a story because you don't want to say, oh, I just ripped off Fancy Feet down the. You don't want to say that, so you make up a story, people can read through that. So that's just, again, not a good look. The biggest danger in copying someone else is what's going to work for that studio may not guaranteed work for you. This is certainly true if you're borrowing ideas across state lines or regions. Now let's talk about what's the difference between, copying and borrowing, because there's nothing new under the sun. Everything in business came from somewhere. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try anything that you see somebody else doing. I'm just saying if there's another studio in your town that is doing the thing and you do a 1-for-1 of it, they're doing a Little Mermaid summer camp and you decide to do Under the Sea summer camp, that's a ripoff. Right? But if you look at it and go, oh, they're doing a summer camp, I've never done one of those before, I'm going to do a summer camp, that's borrowing an idea. And that's how businesses grow. That's a really good idea. Be careful whether you're copying or borrowing, that the things that work, that you see working in other studios in other cities and other regions on the other side of town, may not work for you. Demographics, earning potential, racial and ethnic makeups can impact what's going to work and what doesn't work. And so really this goes back to, you want to figure out what works for you. Now, we've seen this. We have seen studios that are 10 miles apart and they try the same thing and it works for one and it doesn't work for the other. Why? Who knows? There's so many variables involved in that. And we can speculate, we can make a best guess, but ultimately you just want to trial and error a whole bunch of different things for you until you figure out what works for you. And again, we're a small business. Like, we're in this world with you. There are lots of things and ideas that we have seen competitors do. Sometimes they're much bigger competitors. Sometimes they're smaller. And we look at it and go, okay, that's an interesting idea. Would it be beneficial to us? And if we ask that question, most of the time the answer is no. It's like, no, that's not our vibe. The thing that they're doing is good for them. They're making money, but they're doing it at the expense of their reputation, which we're not willing to do. They're making money, but they're doing it at the expense of quality, which we're not willing to sacrifice. So like DMM, we are always going to put quality at the top. I shared our values the other day, and normalizing excellence is right there at the top of the list. So we're not going to do that. We've seen that they're moving into other spaces. So suddenly, if you've noticed, all of the kind of marketing folks who used to do just dance, they're suddenly doing music schools and gymnastics and all of that. And I don't fully know why, because this market is yet untapped and there are more studio owners in this world to grow. But that's taking their eye off the ball. Now, we've looked at that. We looked at it and went, okay, wait, we're feeling scared. We're feeling that we're going to get outpaced. We're feeling like they're going to make more money, and then they can do more things that we won't be able to keep up with. Do we do that too? We decided no, because our business at DMM, we're on a mission to help dance studios win, period. And that's where we're going to stay. So it's like not making decisions out of fear, making them from faith in what's best for you. The other thing I'm going to suggest to you, the reason why copying or exclusively borrowing is not a good plan, is because then you're not looking at where you're going. And I'm sure you've seen those videos. I enjoy them when somebody's walking down the street and they're like FaceTiming and they're talking to somebody on their phone. They're not fully looking where they're going. They walk into like a street lamp or somebody else, and they're like, it's kind of an embarrassing moment for them. It's because they're just not looking at where they're going. And the bottom line is, what you behold, you will become. And I think that's a weird way of saying whatever you look at is where you're going. Now, I used to ride a unicycle. Yes, this was a weird thing that not a lot of people know, but now you all know. I learned to ride a unicycle when I was 7 years old. I rode one up until I was in my mid-20s, to be honest. It's how I commuted when I was living in Chicago between classes. Yes, I was that weird guy. That was me. But when there's a very real rule in unicycling, is what you look at, you will go to. And they teach this to pilots as well. Like, what you look at, you will drive to, you will steer to. And so it's like the one guarantee is if you're like riding down the road and there's a lamppost, if you look at the lamppost, that's the thing you're going to end up hitting. Where if you look anywhere else, you'll go anywhere else. And so why do I share this story in kind of this weird and convoluted roundabout way? Bottom line is, if you're not looking at your success, if you're looking at the success of somebody else in town, and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to steal their idea, I'm just going to see what they do, and then I'm going to copy that, you're not going to get to where you want to go. The only place you will ever be is in their shadow. And that's not a way to build a business. Okay, so if you are the copied, how do we handle this? Honestly, ignore it. Don't waste your energy trying to fight the copycats. This is easier said than done. And again, I shared the story with you where one of the studio management softwares is ripping us off right now. It is hard to do. However, if you can manage this, to just put it out of your mind, put on the blinders, and just focus on your business, you will take that emotional energy that would go into complaining about all the things that aren't right and focus it towards building into the next level or season of your studio, hitting your big goals, and just go for it. Because we only really have two things at the end of the day. You have time and you have energy. And time is where you spend it, like what you spend your time on, where you're focused, and energy is how. And so if you are focusing your time and energy on complaining about the studio down the block who's ripping you off, then you're not moving your business forward either. And now you're both stagnating. It becomes a slog. Don't bother. Just grow your thing. Keep your eyes straight ahead. Focus on what's next for you. What's the next service you can offer? How can you make your dance experience even better for your dancers, for the parents, make it even easier? Focus on your sales and marketing systems and just outgrow them. I love the idea that your best revenge is success. And so if someone's making you crazy, just grow so freaking fast that they can't even hold a candle to your flame. That's my philosophy. That's my opinion on that. Just keep innovating, keep evolving. Yeah, make it harder for them to keep up. So again, it's like the faster you grow, the more money you have because the more dancers you have, right? And that money turns into solutions. You can offer new things. You can go and rent a new facility or buy a new facility. You can build a building. You can take your kids on to maybe more exclusive trips or competitions, things that you couldn't do before you had the money. You can invest in better staff. You can, again, invest in sales and marketing systems to help you scale even faster. And the idea is that you will, with every innovative step, you will put distance between you and your copier, the person who's ripping you off. And eventually it won't even make sense for them to rip you off because the things that you're doing are at such a high level. There's such a time or nuanced investment or training of the staff or cost associated with it. They just won't be able to keep up. And so just grow, focus on growth and accelerate your own growth and leave them in the dust, literally. The other thing I'd encourage you to do is go deep. Not just far or fast, but also go deep. Because one of the things that happens when people start copying off, they start ripping off your studio, they start ripping off their ideas, it is superficial. They're like, yeah, we're doing an undersea thing or a Little Mermaid camp or whatever. And that's as far as they're going to go because that's all they can see from your socials, from your advertising, from what's on your website. And so they can only rip off what they can see. What they can't see is the things that happen inside. They can't see the ways in which you're building relationship with parents. They can't see how you're helping parents to feel more connected, helping kids feel more connected. We just did an episode last week, an interview where I interviewed Katie Dunphy, who's part of the DMM team, and she does a deep dive, and it is really spectacular. Listen, on how she made people feel welcome the first time they walked through the front door of her studio. Listen to that. Take notes. Do the things because you're not putting that up on your website. That is exclusive to you. Focus on what happens inside the four walls, and then let the wrapping be the wrapping. The packaging is the packaging, and truthfully, who cares? What matters is what happens when the parents step inside. Focus on that. Joey Coleman has a book called Never Lose a Customer Again. That's another great read on just really orienting your mindset towards what does success look like. So highly, highly encourage those. All right, so let's recap. If you are leading, you will always be copied. This is a fact of the world, right? Don't give your time or energy to that. Focus instead on outshining, outgrowing your competition. Focus on what happens inside the four walls. Focus on your sales and marketing. Because again, more dancers means more revenue means more cash means more options. So don't worry about the copier or who's ripping you off. Just keep your head down and focus on what's going to help you win. If you are the copier, knock it off. It's not good for you. It's a short-term fix. It's a Band-Aid, but it doesn't help your business actually get good or grow. Do the hard thing. Take the step back. Go through the painful process of learning what you need to do to grow your business, and that's really going to help you to grow. So whether you are the copier or the copied, both of you have homework to do, things that you can do right now to focus on your business. And if you want any help with this, I'd be happy to go through that with you. We have a completely free strategy call where we help you look at your target market area, help you figure out strategically what are the best things that you can do to step into that space to grow your business, grow your studio as quickly and as sustainably as possible. I'd love to give that to you. It is a gift. All you have to do is head to dancemotionmarketing.com and hit the big schedule a call button in the top right corner, and we'd love to talk to you with no pressure to buy anything that we have to offer. That's what we got. Have a great one. Make it count.